This is John Stahl-Wert, and along with my colleagues at Center for Serving Leadership, we're committed to serving and supporting men and women around the world to make the biggest positive impact they can make through their leadership. I'd like to tell you a couple of stories on this podcast. But first of all, let me do just a quick review of some fundamentals. You hear me do these reviews and these reminders again and again. I don't do that to waste our time. I do that because I find that we need it. We need the reminders in the difficulties of our work. We need to get our sights back up. We need to refocus on what matters again and again. So very simply, as I've shared with you before, first question, what's the purpose of our organization? What's the purpose of our business? And this is so rudimentary, we forget to ask it, and we think we know the answer. The purpose of the organization we serve, the gathering of people into teams, whether they're businesses or nonprofits or what have you, is to do good work. That's the purpose. Any sustainably profitable enterprise I have ever seen is devoted to do good work. You say, well, I heard that the purpose of business is to make money. Byproduct of doing good work is profitability. By the way, that's the case across the board. You know, you could say, well, the purpose of a nonprofit organization is to secure grants. No. Or the purpose of a church is to take offering collections on Sunday. No. Offerings, grants, charitable gifts, funding from the state or the federal government to do whatever you do. Profit is not the purpose. Doing good work is the purpose. Doing something that matters is the purpose. Doing something that's useful to the world is the purpose. Serving people, helping people, inventing things that people need, solving problems. That's our purpose. That's number one. Number two, what's the purpose of leadership? The purpose of leadership is to create the conditions in the doing of the work that are human, so that the most valuable treasure that we have, our people, wakes up at work, shows up at work, stands up at work, and brings their best. We say, well, everyone says that people matter. Yes, everyone says that people matter, but not everybody means it. It's something we say. Actually, everybody doesn't say people matter. I know some people who say that people don't matter, and it's just about money and what have you, but we're not even talking about them. The purpose of our leadership is to create workplace conditions in which people matter, in which the men and the women who come and join us to do things that matter realize, I can trust this place. I actually have clarity in what I'm doing so that I know why it matters. When I look to my left and my right, I can trust my colleagues. We're in it together. We share a mission. We share a vision. We share values. When one of us is down, others stand up. We help each other. The purpose of leadership is to create that environment. The purpose of leadership is not just to drive people to do stuff. The purpose of leadership is to grow people into alignment with all good things so that we get the best from them. And why is that? Well, because human beings who are more than, machines to us, human beings who are more than tools we use and throw out, human beings who find at work a place to live and to serve and to rejoice and to feel loved and to trust and to have friendships because they're there with others who are trying to do important things beside them. Human beings who become full human beings at work do unbelievably amazing things. And just hiring people and managing them and supervising them and evaluating them and paying them or not, firing them, just driving performance through people doesn't get the whole human person. And the whole human person is an immeasurable asset of impact. And so the purpose of leadership is to produce the environment, the culture, the soil, if you would, for the growth of people into alignment with the things we do in the world that matter. And what is serving leadership? Serving leadership, very simply, is a body of very specific practices that we have learned from around the world that cause workplaces to become human places. I could talk to you all day long about things like, well, people matter. And you'd say, well, I already heard that. Or I could talk to you about the fact that, you got to answer the why question. People need meaning. And you say, well, okay, I heard that too. Or about values. I could talk to you about those things. What matters is that we have the opportunity to show you what to do about it. I hear this all over the world. I know that I should be a better leader. How do I become a better leader? I know that, I should build trust with my people. How do I build trust with my people? And so on and so forth. And serving leadership, very simply, is a body of the practical tools and the measures that allow us to see where we are, see where we have to improve very empirically, go through some disciplines and practices so that we're starting to behave in the right way, and then seeing the results of that. One of our values at Center for Serving Leadership is results. And I want to tell you a couple of stories about results. It matters to us a great deal that when we help leaders build the skills they need, and when we watch those skills improve the cultures of their workplaces, that we see the impact of what they do in the world get better. It's got to be a straight through line. If you line up a pool shot with your cue stick of improving my practices, you ought to see that it hits a ball soundly. We'll call that building a better workplace culture, and then we want to see that ball go in the pocket. It's as simple as that. We're not here to lecture or theorize about these things. We want to create results that help the world get better. One of the areas that we teach, in our research over many years, which was captured in a book called The Serving Leader, we identified 5 practices that we were watching around the world in every workplace culture of excellence that was doing amazing things and building enterprises that were extraordinary. And I'm not going to walk through what they are. I've done that on other podcasts, but I want to just lift out one here and then tell you a couple of quick stories. One of them that we teach, we call upend the pyramid. Turn that pyramid upside down so that the people are on top and the leadership is underneath doing the empowering. We teach the skills, the disciplines step by step, block and tackle, of how you get your people equipped tomorrow to do what you do today. I don't think I've seen a larger area of management malpractice on earth than, for example, bad delegation practice. I'm going to give you more responsibility. And so the delegation happens and the person fails. And then you grab it back and you do it yourself. And then you end up saying ridiculous things like, if you want a job done right, you have to do it yourself. That's ridiculous. We can't. If you're a solo entrepreneur and you're going to do your work by yourself for the rest of your life, then go ahead and do it yourself. But if you want to grow and expand and multiply and reach a larger part of the world, you can't do it yourself. And so one of the things we teach is, okay, how do I go through that process properly? I'm not being critical. The reason that many managers end up delegating and then retracting delegation is because they weren't shown how to do it properly. That's all. I have no criticism, stitched into any part of my DNA. I'm a human being who has messed up everything as thoroughly or more than the rest of human types. So I don't have any criticism. I do have it's a mission, a duty to speak clearly about these things. That could sound like criticism. It isn't. I just want to speak clearly about these things. And I have seen more malpractice in the delegation area than I think anything else. Hired someone, I gave them the job, I told them how to do it. They said, I understand. At the end of the orientation or the delegation, we said, you understand? And they say, I got it, boss. But they didn't have it. And then it was a mess, and it would have been better if we hadn't even gone through that. I've heard people say, I can do it myself 4 times in the amount of time it takes me to explain it to someone else. And why would I go through that if, after taking all that time to explain it, they mess it up anyway? So we call this area upend the pyramid. How do we get ourselves underneath others so that they do the work tomorrow that we do today? And so that not only they do it, but they really, really do it excellently. Two quick stories. First one comes from Singapore. So we have two entities. Center for Serving Leadership is our commercial enterprise. This is how we make our living. And we do it by serving organizations and businesses that need help in their leadership development. And they can rationalize spending time and money to get better at something, because if it is the right thing that they've invested in, they get better in ways that give them a return on that investment. Down the road, they realize, wow, I have a lot more time than I did. I spent days with the Center for Serving Leadership. I didn't have time for that. But now I've got days a month back as a return on that investment. And I spent some money, to go through the training, but now we're not bleeding money. So it paid back and it paid back. And in fact, I spent it once with them, but I'm getting repaid every month forever. So that's how we do our commercial work. We do the Center for Serving Leadership training to make a living. We do it to pay our bills, to pay our people, serving companies to help them get better. Gives us great joy to do that. Over on the nonprofit side, we have an organization called World Serving Leaders, which does the very same work in parts of the world that don't have any money to pay. They need it just as much. They're capable of being leaders of just as high a caliber. They're extraordinary. We're in the literal richest nation on earth as measured in GDP per capita commercially, and we're in the poorest nation on earth GDP per capita through World Serving Leaders. The leaders, the men and the women we serve are of equal caliber, amazing human beings, but we transfer these skills through the World Serving Leaders side. And so I'm going to tell you one story from each. Our Singapore office is on the commercial side. They are GDP per capita number one out of 197 nations. When you add a measure called purchasing power parity, when you get apples compared to apples in measuring nations in GDP, gross domestic product per person generated in that nation, when you even it out through purchasing power parity scoring, Singapore is number one on earth out of 197 nations. And back in about 2018, I had the opportunity to do some work on upend the pyramid at what was then called Ang Mo Kio Family Services Center, AMKFSC, which is a large blue ribbon nonprofit organization serving families and communities, kind of a one-stop shop for health and for education and for housing for the poor in Singapore. Ang Mo Kio Family Services Center was birthed inside one community in Singapore called Ang Mo Kio, and then it spread across Singapore. And so I did this work inside the organization, working with the CEO, Dr. Vincent Ng, and his team. And so we had about 35 people that we took through the Serving Leader training. And when we got to upend the pyramid, I shared with them that we were going to walk them through a body of skills so that their managers would get better and better at putting responsibility and authority into the hands of their workers, so that increasingly the weight of leadership would be distributed. This is what holds growth back. We're the only ones who know the vision of the organization. We're the only ones who know the values of the organization. We're the only one who really understands the quality standards that the mission requires when we serve our customers or our clients. We just hand out the jobs, but we're always overworked because they have to run back to get, guidance on things, because real life means you run into circumstances that you weren't trained for. And so we had gone through all that work in different actions of the serving leader. And then we got down to upend the pyramid, which really drills into how do you transfer the responsibility now? They're aligned with the vision. They're aligned with the values. They're aligned with the mission. They're in the right seat. But now we want to empower them. And Up in the pyramid is about empowerment. And we go through a very detailed process, as I mentioned, on how to delegate and how to mentor so that now you're increasingly developing others. It's not about what you're doing, scurrying around being so important. Now, more and more people in alignment with what you stand for are doing the doing, and you are more on the underside of the pyramid, helping the people at the top of the pyramid, the upside down part of the pyramid, to really drive great results. And I shared with them that we practice this ourselves at Center for Serving Leadership. And one of the ways we do this is we, as soon as any leader is ready, we teach the organizations that we serve how to teach serving leadership without us. We practice what we preach. I've said, to leaders for 30 years that the last test of our leadership, the final exam we have to pass in our leadership practice is that the people that are doing the work without us are doing it excellently. Our last test is we're no longer there. And it's fantastic because we transferred everything. That's a delegation process. That's a people growing process. And so I said to Vincent and his team, as soon as you want, we will train your own trainers, and we will transfer the curricula of serving leadership inside so that AMKFSC can do this work without us. And several of their team at LEAD, a clinical leader at AMKFSC named Yum Sinting, stepped forward with Dr. Ung and said, I want to be trained as a serving leader trainer. And so Sinting went through the training certification, became a serving leader trainer, fully certified, embedded inside the organization. I should just update, AMKFSC has rebranded, and they are now called All Kin, family, all, as it were. Dr. Ng is still the chief. Sinting is still the trainer. They are doing the training there. To me, this is the end game, that Center for Serving Leadership, helping an organization get strong in scaling its practice. This is a large organization, and then turning over to them, empowering them with the tools that allow them to do this work without us. Sinting has now, and her team has now trained well over 300 of the workers inside All Kin herself. Our Asia managing director, my colleague and friend in Singapore, Kevin Lee, now works with Sinting and helps them with that. And we do this more and more. It is an amazing thing when you grow the capacity of your team. We do it by growing the capacity of our clients. And you see that your essentialness, your necessity in the equation becomes less and less because they now possess the strength to run. That's the real impact. It's the last action we teach. Run to great up in the pyramid. It's the last action we teach because it's the capstone of helping organizations then walk without us, run without us, do the work, drive the work, scale the work internally. And so I was back just recently spending time with All Kin, and we were just watching the immense gains that they have made. A year ago, we gave All Kin the Serving Leader Organization Award of the Year for Singapore. They've done just amazing work. I'm mentioning this because we are regularly offering Train the Trainer certification. And there is one upcoming that I want you to know about. In late January, we're going to, again, do a virtual training certification. And maybe some people who are listening would feel that they're ready as serving leaders to become agents of this work themselves, whether you do this in your world as a consultant or you do this inside your organization. I'd love you to know about that so that you can onboard these skills and do it inside your organization. Second story. My colleague, Dr. Nelson Okonya, works globally on the World Serving Leaders side, helping transfer these same skills into communities, nations that don't have the top, don't have the top line revenue to do it on a commercial basis. And a couple of years ago, Nelson went to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And he did this through a partnership we have with an organization called SOS Adventures. And he trained a whole bunch of people in the DRC. For those of you who may not know, the DRC is a very poor nation that, quite frankly, has been taken advantage of through bad leadership. I'm not going to walk into that story, but there is a 150-year legacy of poor leadership that was taught to them by King Leopold when Belgium ruled the expanded Congo. It wasn't just the Congo then, but it wrapped in Rwanda and Burundi and other parts. And King Leopold personally owned the Congo. It wasn't just a Belgian landholding, it was his landholding. And he established a leadership practice that, here's what leadership is. It's brutalization. I'm stronger than you, so I can make you pay if you don't listen to me. And so we're working against that legacy, and we're training leaders in the military and in the police and in the government and in the churches and in the businesses of the DRC and serving leadership. And one of the men that came to that first training is now one of our certified training partners. He's doing this work himself. His name is Philemon, and Philemon got it. He's a pastor in DRC. He's also a UN worker working with a refugee camp that's very close to his home. The DRC is at war because two key leaders are fighting each other in public, so there's a lot of killing. Philemon and his wonderful wife, Charlotte, have 15 orphans in their own home, and he's a training partner. And so we walked him through this training in serving leadership, training as a trainer in serving leadership, and certification, so that he has everything. We had it, now he has it. Remember what I said? The purpose of up in the pyramid is so that our people tomorrow can do what we do today. And you can well imagine, I think, when you think about it, what Philemon in Goma, DRC can do that I can't do, Nelson can't do, because it's his community, and he's been doing extraordinary things, training leaders in the military, in the government, among the police, in the community, in serving leadership, and the desire to learn better skills of creating workplace environments, community environments that are good for people. The timing is perfect for this. And Philemon sent a couple of pictures back that I want to share with you. He had figured out a price point to charge in the DRC that would be right based on annual income. $400 or $500 a year is the average earnings of a person in the DRC a year. And he had figured out a very small price point because he said, listen, people need to value what they gain. And as world serving leaders, we don't repatriate these dollars. These are reutilized in country to support our trainers and to grow things there. And he reached out to Nelson and he said, Nelson, I have $75 in our account. This is DRC citizens having paid small amounts of money to get better at their craft because they know they need it, making investments. And so he had trained and finished a training with a group of people, and he had collected the investments from that group of people. He said, I've got $75, and how do I get it back to the United States? And Nelson likes to say that he had learned well about exercising authority without having to run to the boss, the owner, that's me, and say, "Can I do this?" He just did it, which makes me super happy. And he said to Philemon, "No, we're not having you send $75 from the DRC to the U.S. You've got 15 orphans in your home, and you're working in the refugee camp close by. Why don't you reinvest those dollars? What would you use them for, Philemon?" He said, "Food." we'd buy food. Nelson said, fantastic. That's earned income. That's earned revenue. That builds muscle for you. That builds capital for your community. You generated it by doing something valuable in your community. Remember what I said. The purpose of everything we do is to do good things in the world. And if we do good things in the world, there's a value exchange for that. And so Nelson talked to Philemon about that. And then he sent us some photographs. And the photographs were of a room with a vast amount of food. Big bags stacked upon each other of rice and other staples that Philemon had bought with $75. It was a big store space of food that he bought with the money that he had earned doing valuable work in a poor nation that was valued. Tracking with me? And Nelson shows this picture of the refugee camp of our partner Philemon, who's doing good things where he lives and training hundreds and hundreds of serving leaders, and the photograph of the food. And here's what Nelson likes to ask. See that food there? He asks this in North America. See that food there? Where'd it come from? And a world that's accustomed to charity thinks, somebody shipped it to them. And Nelson says, no, that came from the DRC. That food came from the DRC. Then he says, where'd the money come from to buy that food that's going to do such good in that community? And Nelson then says, the money came from the DRC. And then he asks, how did that happen? That something was done in the Democratic Republic of the Congo that was valued by the people that it was done for, such that in spite of the fact that the average annual earnings is $450, equivalent to US, they wanted to invest in it because they knew it would make them stronger, producing this economy, producing this transfer of value, generating capacity in that community. How did that get brought about? It got brought about by leading according to serving leadership principles. This is what we're committed to, upending the pyramid, helping people get stronger. There's a place for charity, but there is a deeper place for empowerment, where people take responsibility, people learn to do good things that make a difference. Those difference-making things are valued, and you begin to get value exchange. That is foundational for flourishment anywhere on earth. Our vision statement, we envision inside Center for Serving Leadership and World Serving Leaders a flourishing world where serving has become the trademark of leadership. And we work at this on a commercial basis. We'll work at this on a nonprofit basis. Those are just structures and instruments to reach different kinds of people that we have the opportunity to serve. And we watch the growth of capability and capacity, the empowerment process that makes a difference. This is what you're doing as well in your enterprise. You're getting better at your craft. You're getting stronger at delivering what you promise to people you deliver it for. You become more able to do that because the exchange that comes back to you of value allows you to grow and make new investments. This is how it works. And then you develop your people so that you can scale, because you can't do it all yourself. You empower others, you equip others, you authorize others, and then it spreads. This is our work. This is your work. This is our work. It's such a joy to us to be in this community together with you, this community of serving leaders. And I want to encourage you today, whatever you can do today to get better at your craft and then to transfer that capability to others so that you can scale, do that. And we're so appreciative of the impact that you make, and we want to encourage you to continue to learn and grow in your journey as a serving leader.
For more information about the Center for Serving Leadership, visit our website, at centerforservingleadership.com.